She used her last strength to save a wolf pup. The Alpha King found her bleeding. The forest had a voice that whispered in shadows, a low murmur of trees swaying against the wind. Break. Mist curled around gnarled roots and tangled branches, turning the woods into a labyrinth of silver and gray. It was a place where even the bravest travelers hesitated, sensing danger in every rustle of leaves. Brr.
But Elara did not hesitate. She ran.
Her breath came in ragged bursts, her legs trembling with exhaustion, yet she pressed forward. Cradled against her chest was a small, fragile shape, a wolf pup, its fur matted with blood, its small chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. Brrr. The pup whimpered softly, and each sound felt like a cry for a life that might slip away before she could save it. Elara had been traveling for days, moving from village to village, healing the sick, tending to the wounded. Her hands had grown skilled at patching wounds and mending broken bones, yet there were limits to what even she could do. Magic flowed through this forest, ancient and unyielding, and it seemed determined to test her. Oration. Roots twisted beneath her feet, and shadows shifted unnaturally, like something alive watching her every move.
Her strength was failing.
She had not slept in 2 nights, had not eaten more than scraps, and every step forward felt like wading through lead. Yet still, she would not let the pup die. She had promised herself she would save it, even if it cost her her life. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through her ankle, throwing her to the ground. The roots had moved in the darkness, wrapping like hands around her leg. She groaned, pushing herself up, her hands slick with mud and blood. The pup stirred, letting out a tiny, distressed cry. Elara clutched it tighter, whispering soft, steady words, hoping to calm both herself and the fragile creature. He'll be safe soon, she murmured, her voice barely above the whispering wind. I'll make sure of it. The forest seemed to react, the mist thickening, making it nearly impossible to see the path ahead. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, yet she pushed forward, driven by the faint hope that somewhere ahead safety awaited. And then, through the fog, she saw it, a shadow moving with purpose, large and imposing, its presence more commanding than any human she had ever encountered. Elara froze, her heart hammering. She knew tales of the Alpha King, a being who ruled over this cursed forest with power and fear. He was said to be merciless, a creature both man and wolf, bound to the ancient magic of the land. Many who had crossed his path were never seen again. But he was coming toward her now, his eyes glowing faintly in the mist. Alara's instinct was to flee, yet she could barely stand. Her legs shook, her body ached, and the pup in her arms weighed her down like a stone. You shouldn't be here, a voice rumbled, deep and commanding, yet oddly calm. Elara looked up to see him fully, tall, imposing, with features sharp as a blade and eyes that seemed to pierce through both body and soul. His dark hair fell to his shoulders, and faint silvery markings traced across his skin, glowing softly in the dim light. Around him the air seemed to bend, a low hum of power vibrating in the space between them. I'm just trying to help this pup, Elara managed to say, her voice trembling. Please. I don't want trouble. He regarded her silently, tilting his head slightly like a predator curious about its prey, but holding back. For a moment, the forest seemed to fall silent, as if even the trees waited to see what would happen next. You are foolish, he said finally. This forest is not kind to fools. Elara's chest heaved, not from fear, but from desperation. She held the pup closer, feeling its faint warmth against her hands. Maybe, she whispered, but it is kinder than leaving it to die. For a moment, the Alpha King's stern expression softened, a fleeting shadow of something she could not name passing across his face. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming, yet he did not strike. Instead, he crouched slightly, lowering himself to her level, not to harm her, but perhaps to see her more clearly. Barash, you risk your life for a creature like this? He asked, his voice lower now, almost a growl tempered by curiosity.
Elara nodded, biting back a groan as a wave of dizziness swept over her.
I couldn't leave it. It has done nothing wrong, and it doesn't deserve this. None of them do. The Alpha King's eyes flickered toward the pup, then back to her. You are not afraid of me? I have no choice but to fear what I must, she said quietly, but I will not let fear stop me from doing what is right. Then, without warning, his hand shot out and caught her before she could stumble from weakness. His grip was firm but not cruel, steadying her. You are weaker than you realize, he said, almost to himself. Yet, strong where it matters. Alara's legs gave way completely, and she collapsed into his arms. The pup still clutched to her chest. Bird. Her vision blurred, and the forest spun around her like a living nightmare. She felt herself drifting toward unconsciousness, a haze of fear, pain, and relief mixing together. The Alpha King moved with surprising swiftness, carrying her through the misty trees. Each step was careful, deliberate, his senses alert to every shadow and sound. Despite his fearsome reputation, he seemed almost protective, as if he recognized the fragility in her and in the pup and felt compelled to preserve it. Finally, they reached a clearing where the forest thinned, and the first faint light of dawn filtered through the trees. He set her down gently on the mossy ground. She gasped, struggling to sit up, but her body refused. Her hands trembled as she looked at him, trying to find words. Are you? She whispered. He remained silent for a long moment, his eyes scanning the horizon, alert to unseen dangers. I am Kale, he said at last, the Alpha King of these woods.
And you are lucky to be alive. Ilara tried to speak again, but only a weak breath escaped her lips.
Kale knelt beside her, taking the pup from her arms. He examined it carefully, murmuring a few words that sounded like an ancient spell. The pup stirred, whimpering softly, and Ilara felt a wave of relief she could not articulate.
You saved it, Kale said finally, his voice quieter now, almost reverent.
Not many would risk themselves for something so small. Most would leave it.
Fired grateful smile.
Some of us cannot look the other way, she whispered. Kale studied her, his glowing eyes reflecting both curiosity and something else, something she could not name. There was power in him, yes, but also a restraint, a sense of honor even amid the darkness he commanded. She saw a shadow of the man beneath the myth, and it stirred something unfamiliar in her chest.
You will need rest, he said, helping her to lean against a nearby tree. The forest is unforgiving to the weak, and you are weak now.
She tried to say, but her voice failed her. Her eyelids drooped, and for the first time in days, she allowed herself to surrender to exhaustion. Desperation. Kale stayed beside her, silent, watching as she drifted into sleep. He placed the pup gently beside her, its small body nestled against her legs, a protective warmth that seemed to bond them in ways words could not describe. The mist thickened once more, curling around them like a living thing. Kale's gaze swept the forest, alert to danger, yet he could not tear his eyes away from the fragile figure before him. Something about her bravery, her refusal to beg, had touched a part of him long buried under the weight of power and fear. Brr. As the first rays of sunlight pierced the mist, Elara slept fitfully, murmuring soft words to the pup in her dreams. Kale's eyes narrowed slightly as he sensed a presence, something dark and ancient moving in the woods. Brr. A warning whispered through his mind, a thread of magic that tied him to her fate. If he failed to protect her, the consequences would ripple far beyond this forest. Bare. He felt the weight of his kingdom, the pull of his curse, and a strange, unbidden fear. The possibility that her life, so fragile and determined, might be entwined with his own in ways he did not yet understand. And as the pup stirred, its small eyes glowing faintly with a mysterious light, Ko realized that saving her might be the beginning of something far greater. A bond that could challenge both his power and the destiny written in the shadows of the forest. The forest whispered again, its voice low and hungry. And Kale knew. This was only the beginning. Brr. The fortress loomed ahead like a jagged crown against the sky. Its black stone walls rose high, entwined with ivy that seemed to shift when no one looked directly at it. Towers reached into the clouds, and narrow windows glimmered faintly with warm, golden light. Mist curled around its base, blending with the shadows of the forest that Kale called his domain. Inspiration. Elara stirred as Kale carried her through the massive gates. Her body ached, her arms were sore from holding the pup, and yet she felt a strange mixture of awe and fear. The fortress was alive, humming softly with magic that brushed against her skin like a whisper. She had never seen anything like it. Brr. Kale placed her gently on a wide, cushioned bench in a room filled with flickering lanterns. The pup snuggled against her legs, its faint glow pulsing softly, as if it could sense safety for the first time. Inspiration. KL stood a few steps away, his expression unreadable, though his eyes never left her.
"You will rest here," he said.
Inspiration. His voice was calm, but carried the weight of command. The forest is no longer your concern, at least for tonight.
Elara nodded weakly, pressing her hand against the pup's warm fur.
Thank you for saving me, she whispered. I thought I was done. Kale's gaze softened just slightly, a rare crack in the armor he wore like a second skin. You are stronger than you think, but the world will not forgive weakness. Not even here. The words sent a shiver down her spine. She realized the fortress was more than a home. It was a kingdom of power, ruled by rules she could not yet understand. Her instincts told her that Kale was both protector and judge, and she must tread carefully. Days passed slowly. Elara awoke to the soft light of dawn filtering through tall windows. The relics of surrounded by rooms filled with strange artifacts, relics of long-forgotten battles, maps drawn in silver ink, and shelves of books whose pages seemed to move when she glanced at them. Every corner of the fortress whispered history and magic, a reminder that Kale's power was older than any kingdom she had known. The pup followed her wherever she went, a constant, comforting presence. Kale watched them from a distance, silent but always alert. There was a tension in the air whenever he approached, a magnetic push and pull between them that neither could fully explain. You should eat, Kale said one evening, placing a bowl of warm stew before her. His eyes met hers briefly, sharp and intense. You are still weak. Strength will not return through courage alone. Elara looked down at the food, hesitant. I am not used to being cared for, she admitted softly. I usually care for others, not Myself. Kale's gaze lingered, a mixture of curiosity and something deeper. Caring for yourself is not weakness, he said quietly. Inspiration. It is survival, and survival is necessary if you wish to help others. The words struck her. She had always thought her worth came from what she could give, from saving others, even at her own expense. Yet here, in the quiet of Kale's fortress, she felt a new truth forming, a recognition that strength could also mean accepting help, trusting another. That night, she walked along the balcony, the pup at her side, looking out over the forest shrouded in mist. Kale appeared behind her silently, a shadow among shadows. You think this forest is dangerous, he said. And it is. But it is nothing compared to the dangers within yourself. Elara looked at him, startled. What do you mean? Fear, he said simply. Doubt, regret. They are more powerful than any creature in the forest. They can destroy a person without leaving a mark on the skin. Buried. She thought of the pup, its fragile life in her hands, the fear she had felt running through the forest. Then I must be braver than my fear, she said softly. Kale nodded. Yes, and yet, even bravery is not enough. You must be clever, patient, and willing to accept that not everything is within your control.
Elara felt a shiver at the weight of his words. He was teaching her, guiding her, not through gentle lessons, but through truth, raw and undeniable.
Inspiration. She realized that, despite her fear, she trusted him. Days turned into weeks. Kale tested her in subtle ways, a hallway lined with mirrors that reflected not her face but her deepest fears. A garden where flowers whispered lies designed to shake her confidence. A library of books that moved on their own, challenging her to find the knowledge hidden within chaos. Each trial was exhausting, yet each revealed more of her strength. She learned to focus her mind, to trust her instincts, and to remain calm even when the world seemed to conspire against her. And through it all, Kale was always nearby, watching, guiding, sometimes pushing, sometimes holding back. One evening, as a storm raged outside, Elara found herself in the oldest chamber of the fortress. Ancient runes glowed faintly along the walls, and the air thrummed with magic. Kale appeared silently, standing in the doorway, his eyes reflecting the flickering lightning. You have done well, he said. But there is something you must know. The forest, the pup, your presence here, it is not by chance.
Elara frowned. What do you mean? Kale stepped closer, his gaze unwavering.
There is a curse upon my bloodline, a darkness that has haunted my family for generations. It will consume the kingdom if left unchecked. Her heart beat faster. And the pup? She asked, glancing at the small creature sleeping at her feet. The pup carries magic, ancient and powerful, Kale said. A light that can break the curse, but it is fragile. It must be protected, and it may be tied to you more than you realize. Elara felt a chill. The thought of the pup, so small, holding the key to a curse older than Kale's kingdom, was overwhelming. Yet she felt a strange determination rising within her. She would protect it, no matter the cost. Kale studied her, as if weighing her resolve. You may not understand now, he said quietly. But your courage, your choices. They will shape more than your own fate. They may save or doom everything I hold dear.
Elara swallowed hard, the weight of responsibility pressing on her chest. She had faced fear before, pain and exhaustion, but this was different.
The fate of a kingdom, the life of a pup, the heart of the Alpha King. Everything was tied together in ways she could barely comprehend. You do not have to carry it alone, Kale said, his voice softer now, almost gentle. But you must choose whether to trust me. She looked at him, the man who had saved her life, whose power was both terrifying and magnetic. She felt the pull of something she could not name, a connection, fragile and unspoken, yet undeniable. I trust you, she whispered. Kale's expression softened. Just for a moment, a glimpse of something hidden beneath his mask of authority. Then we will face it together, he said. But the night was not quiet. Shadows moved beyond the windows, shapes twisting in ways that no human eye could fully see. The forest whispered in a language older than memory, carrying warnings that only Kale could sense. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the fortress. The pup stirred, its small body glowing faintly, as if reacting to a danger unseen.
Kale's eyes narrowed. They are coming, he said.
Elara felt a surge of fear. Darkness that has watched this forest for centuries, Kale replied. It knows of the pup's power, and it will take whatever it can to stop us. Elara clutched the pup to her chest, her heart pounding. Then we must be ready, she said, her voice steady despite the fear curling in her stomach. Kale placed a hand on her shoulder, firm and reassuring. We will be. But you must remember, power alone will not save us. You must be clever, patient, and brave. You have already shown that, but there is more to come. For the first time, Elara saw the weight Kale carried, not just the responsibility of a kingdom, but the burden of a curse, the fear of losing everything he loved, birth. And in that moment, she understood why he was both feared and respected. His power was immense, but his heart was not closed. The storm outside raged on, lightning flashing across the sky, thunder shaking the fortress walls. Inside, Elara held the pup close, feeling its warmth and its strange, quiet magic. She had only just begun. The forest watched, patient and silent, as the threads of fate wove tighter around her and Kale. Their paths were bound together now by courage, trust, and the fragile glow of a pup that held the key to a curse older than memory. And as the first glimmer of dawn broke through the storm clouds, Kale's eyes met hers once more. The weight of the world rested on both of them, and yet in that gaze, there was a promise that neither would face what was coming alone. The forest beyond the fortress was alive with whispers, shadows twisting and moving as if the trees themselves were watching. The storm had passed, but a heavy silence lingered, broken only by the occasional crackle of distant lightning. The pup trembled in Elara's arms, its glow flickering uncertainly, as though it sensed the danger approaching. Kale led the way, his steps silent but sure. The forest floor, littered with roots and fallen branches, seemed to try to trip them, but Kale moved as though he was part of the land itself. He carried an aura of control, but even he seemed tense. His gaze never left the trees, ears twitching at sounds too subtle for human ears.
Where are we going? Elara asked, clutching the pup tighter. Her heart raced with both fear and anticipation.
To the heart of the forest, Kale said, his voice low, calm, but edged with urgency. There is a place where the curse originates. If we face it there, we might survive. If not, we will not return. Elara nodded, swallowing her fear. She could feel the weight of the journey ahead, but a strange determination filled her. She had already risked her life to save the pup. Desperation. She could not falter now, not when so much depended on her courage and choices. The deeper they went, the more the forest seemed to resist them. Desperation. Shadows stretched unnaturally, twisting into shapes that resembled creatures she could not name. Whispers drifted through the trees, carrying voices that mimicked her own, taunting her with memories of failure and doubt. Each step felt heavier, as though the forest itself tried to wear down her resolve. Bert. Do not let it fool you, Kale said without looking back. The forest feeds on fear. Desperation. If you give in, it will consume you.
Elara closed her eyes for a moment. Drawing a deep breath, she pictured the pup in her arms, its small, trusting eyes.
For its sake, she would not let the shadows win. Slowly, she stepped forward, forcing herself to ignore the whispers. Each heartbeat became a rhythm of defiance, a reminder that courage was not the absence of fear, but the will to move forward despite it. Hours passed, but trees grew taller, their branches intertwining so tightly that the sky was almost invisible. The mist thickened, curling around their legs like hands trying to pull them down. Bert. The pup whimpered softly, and Elara felt its tiny body tremble. She held it closer, whispering soft words of reassurance, even as her own heart pounded with anxiety. Brrrsh. Suddenly, the shadows shifted violently, and a figure emerged from the mist, tall and dark, its shape blurred between man and beast, with glowing eyes that pierced the gloom. Bear. The air grew colder, and a low growl vibrated through the trees. Kale stepped in front of Elara, positioning himself as a shield. Desperation. Stay close, he ordered, his eyes never leaving the creature. It will test us. The figure moved. The figure moved forward, and with each step, illusions seemed to fill the forest around them. Elara's mind swirled with visions. The pup hurt, the fortress burning, Kale falling under a shadow she could not fight. She froze, panic rising, but Kale's hand on her shoulder steadied her. Focus, he commanded. Fear is its weapon, not the truth. Elara took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the pup against her chest. Slowly, she blinked, forcing herself to see past the illusions. The shadows began to thin, and she realized the creature in front of them was a reflection of Kale's curse, a dark, monstrous version of him, eyes blazing with malice, fangs bared in a snarl. Desperation.
Kale's jaw tightened. It is my past, my fear.
My curse made flesh. We must face it together. Elara's heart pounded. She had never fought anything like this before. Bert. She was not a warrior. Not in the sense Kale was. Yet she had courage. And she had the pup. Desperation. And she had Kale. She squared her shoulders and stepped forward. Breshed. A shadow lunged. Kale moved like lightning, claws flashing, teeth bared, but the creature was fast, almost impossibly so. Desperation. Elara ducked instinctively, rolling to avoid a strike. And, in that moment, something in the pup stirred. A soft glow spread from its fur, brightening with every pulse of its magic. Desperation. Kale noticed it immediately! It is responding to you! He said sharply. Do not be afraid of it. Trust it. She whispered softly. We can do this. Together. And the glow intensified, forming a protective light around them. The shadow recoiled, hissing like fire on water, then lunged again. Kael met it with strength and precision, striking at its form, but it was relentless. Elara felt the heat of fear, the pressure of the moment, yet she refused to falter. Slowly she moved closer, guided by instinct and the quiet magic of the pup. She reached out, her hands trembling, and the glow from the pup spread to her, intertwining with her courage. Brr. The shadow screamed, a sound that seemed to shake the trees themselves. Kael's eyes met hers, and in that moment she understood. Their strength, their trust in one another was the key. They were not alone. Together, they could stand against the darkness. With a sudden surge of power, Kael struck the shadow with a final blow, while Elara pressed the pup against its chest, letting the magic flow through her and the small creature. The shadow howled one last time before shattering into mist, leaving only silence and the faint scent of burnt earth.
Elara fell to her knees, exhausted but alive.
The pup nuzzled her, its glow fading slightly but remaining warm and steady. Kael knelt beside her, his expression unreadable, though there was a softness in his eyes that had not been there before. "You did well," he said quietly. "We both did." "The curse is weakened, but it is not gone. There is more ahead." Elara nodded, leaning against him, feeling the strength in his presence. For the first time she realized that Kael was not just a powerful king or a fearsome creature. He was a man burdened by responsibility and fear, yet capable of loyalty, protection, and even care. They continued through the forest, now quieter, the shadows retreating but still lingering at the edges. Every step was careful, deliberate, but each also strengthened the bond between them. Elara felt her fear transform into resolve, her trust in Kael deepening with every trial.
Eventually, they reached a clearing where the trees parted, revealing an ancient stone circle.
The ground was etched with runes glowing faintly in the twilight, and the air thrummed with magic so old it felt like the heartbeat of the earth itself. "This is the heart of the curse," Kael said, his voice hushed. "Here, we must confront what has haunted my bloodline for centuries. Here, your courage and the pup's magic will be tested like never before." Elara looked at the runes, feeling the weight of history pressing down on her.
And if we fail? She asked softly.
Kael's eyes, dark and intense, met hers.
"Then everything dies."
The forest, the kingdom, even us. "But I will not fail." Barris. "Not while you stand beside me." She felt a warmth in his words, a trust she had not expected. And for the first time she did not feel small or powerless. She felt a part of something larger, a destiny shaped not by fear but by choice, courage, and the bond they shared. The pup stirred, its glow brightening as though sensing the approaching challenge. Elara cradled it in her arms, whispering words of encouragement, feeling its heartbeat align with hers. She looked up at Kael. "Then we face it together," she said firmly. Kael nodded, placing a hand over hers, a rare gesture of solidarity. Despair. "Together," he echoed. The wind rose suddenly, carrying a whisper that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Berg. Shadows lengthened and twisted at the edges of the clearing. Something ancient, dark, and powerful was awakening, drawn to the light of the pup and the courage of the girl who dared to challenge fate. Elara felt a shiver, not of fear, but anticipation. The moment had come. The heart of the curse awaited. And though the path ahead was uncertain, she knew this: she would not face it alone. Kael would stand with her, The pup would stand with her. Desperation. And together they would fight for a future neither darkness nor destiny could take from them. The forest watched, patient and ancient, as the three figures, girl, king, and pup, stood in the center of the stone circle, ready to face the shadow of the past and the power of a curse older than memory. And in the distance, something moved. The curse was not finished. It was coming for them, drawn to the light they carried, and to the courage that refused to yield. The clearing was silent, but the stillness was heavy, like the calm before a storm. Mist coiled around the stone circle, curling like living fingers, and the ruins glimmered with an eerie light. Bears. The forest watched, ancient and patient, as the girl, the king, and the pup prepared to face the darkness that had haunted generations. Elara stood tall, though her arms ached from holding the pup. Her heart pounded, not with fear but with determination. The journey through the forest, the trials and the shadows had changed her. She was no longer just a healer or wanderer. She was part of something far greater, something that required courage, trust, and a willingness to face the impossible. Kale stood beside her, his dark eyes glowing faintly, reflecting both his strength and the weight of his responsibility. His hand hovered near hers, not touching, but the connection between them was undeniable. They had faced trials, illusions, and shadows together. They had learned to rely on one another, and now that bond would be their greatest weapon.
The pup stirred in her arms, its small body glowing with a light that pulsed like a heartbeat.
Elara felt the energy flowing through her, warm and steady. The pup's magic was not just healing, it was ancient, powerful, and fragile. It could break the curse that had shadowed Kale's bloodline for centuries, but the forest had tested them for a reason. The darkness would not surrender easily.
A low rumble echoed through the trees, vibrating beneath their feet.
The air grew colder, and shadows stretched unnaturally, forming shapes that resembled twisted versions of Kale himself. His cursed ancestors, their faces distorted in rage and sorrow, emerged from the mist. Their presence pressed on Kale's shoulders like invisible chains, reminding him of the weight he had carried for lifetimes. "This is it," Kale said, his voice steady but low, a warning and a reassurance all at once. "Face the darkness and do not let it break you. Together, we are stronger than it knows."
Elara nodded. Her fear was still there, but it had transformed into focus.
She had seen the shadows of doubt and fear before. They had tried to shake her during the forest trials, but now she would not yield.
She tightened her grip on the pup, whispering softly, "We can do this, together." The shadows advanced, their forms twisted and roared, clawing at the edges of reality.
The air thickened with the weight of ancient magic, heavy and suffocating. Kyle moved forward, a protective shield of power radiating from him. Yet even he could not stand alone against the force of generations of curse and anger. Elara took a deep breath, letting the pup's warmth flow through her, feeling the connection between them. She realized something vital. Their power was not only in strength or magic, it was in trust, in courage, and in the choice to face fear together. As the first shadow lunged, Kale struck, moving like a predator. His claws flashed in the dim light, meeting the darkness with precision. The shadows hissed and scattered, reforming again, relentless as ever. Elara stepped forward, the pup held high, and whispered words she did not understand fully but felt in her bones. The glow from the pup expanded, surrounding them in a halo of light that pushed back the shadows. The darkness recoiled, shrieking as the light burned through it, yet it did not retreat completely. It was alive, ancient, and cunning, feeding on fear and despair. Kale's eyes met Elara's, and in that instant, There was no king or healer, no curse or pup, only two hearts beating with courage, hope, and trust. Inspiration. "Do not falter!" he shouted, his voice carrying over the roar of the shadows. "We face this together!" Elara nodded, drawing on every lesson, every trial, every fear she had conquered. Verse. She pressed the pup closer to her chest, and its glow intertwined with her own energy, forming a radiant light that reached out to the darkness. The shadows shrieked and twisted, but they could not penetrate the bond she and Kyle had forged. The forest seemed to pulse with their courage, the trees bending slightly as though offering their strength. Elara felt the weight of generations in the shadows, the power of a curse centuries old, but she did not fear it. She faced it, knowing that fear alone could no longer control her. With a sudden surge, Kale and Elara moved as one. He struck with precise power, while she channeled the pup's magic through her heart. The light flared brilliantly, consuming the shadows in a wave that shook the clearing. One by one, the twisted forms of Kale's ancestors dissolved, their screams fading into whispers, leaving only silence. Exhaustion hit them both, but they remained standing. The forest, once heavy and dark, now shimmered with a renewed light. The mist lifted slightly, revealing the stone circle bathed in a golden glow. The pup yipped softly, its small body glowing faintly, as if satisfied. Brrr.
Kale lowered his hand from the air, breathing heavily. For the first time in centuries, the curse was broken. Not entirely, perhaps, but weakened, vulnerable to the light of courage and trust.
He looked at Elara, his expression softening, a rare vulnerability showing through the mask of the Alpha King. "You," he began, but paused, searching for words. "You saved more than the pup. You've saved me, from fear, from the weight of my own power." Elara's chest swelled with emotion. Deary, she had never expected to hear such words, and yet they resonated deeply.
We saved each other, she said simply, feeling the truth of it in her bones.
Inspiration. You taught me to be brave, and I helped you see what courage really means.
The pup nuzzled her, and Kale stepped closer, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. The warmth of his touch was grounding.
For the first time, there was no fear, only trust and understanding. The forest, ancient and patient, seemed to exhale.
The wind shifted, carrying the scent of earth and rain, and the runes on the stone circle dimmed, their purpose fulfilled.
Inspiration. The curse that had bound Kale's bloodline for centuries was broken, and in its place was something new: hope, renewal, and the quiet, powerful bond between two hearts willing to face darkness together. Elara looked around, taking in the clearing, the forest, the light, and the pup. Brett. She felt a deep sense of accomplishment, not just for herself but for Kale, the pup, and the future they could now shape together. The journey had been perilous, but they had faced it and emerged stronger. Kale knelt beside her, his eyes meeting hers. "The forest is no longer our enemy," he said softly. Inspiration. "And neither is the darkness within us. We have faced it, and we have won." Inspiration.
Elara nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She placed her hand over his, the small gesture carrying more meaning than words ever could.
Together, they had faced fear, shadow, and ancient magic. Together, they had transformed not just the forest, but themselves. The pup yipped happily, leaping slightly in her arms. Its glow pulsed softly, a reminder of the power they had unlocked and the bond they had forged.
Elara smiled, exhausted but exhilarated. Kale stood and extended a hand to her.
Bring. She took it without hesitation, feeling the strength in his grip and the promise in his gaze. "Come," he said. Inspiration. "There is a future to face, and we will face it together. As they walked back through the forest, the trees seemed less threatening, the shadows less alive. The light of dawn broke through the canopy, painting the mist in hues of gold and silver. For the first time, Elara felt a sense of belonging, not just in the forest or the fortress or the world, but in the bond they shared. "You've changed me," Kale said quietly, walking beside her. "In ways I did not think possible."
You've changed me too, Elara replied, her voice soft but steady. Not just by saving me, but by trusting me and by letting me see who you really are.
They paused for a moment, looking at the pup playing in the soft light. The little creature's glow was steady now, no longer a fragile pulse, but a bright, consistent warmth, a symbol of the courage and love that had triumphed over darkness.
Kale placed his hand lightly on her shoulder again, a silent promise. "Whatever comes next," he said, "we face it together."
"No fear, no shadows. No curse can take this from us." Elara nodded, feeling a deep, unshakable certainty. The forest, the darkness, the trials, they had tested her, pushed her to the edge of her strength, and yet she had emerged stronger. She was not just a healer or a wanderer anymore. She was part of a story, part of a future shaped by courage, trust, and love. And as the sun rose higher, spilling golden light across the forest, Kale, Elara, and the pup walked together toward the fortress. The curse had been broken, the darkness subdued, and a new chapter awaited them. One where strength, hope, and heart would guide the path forward. The forest whispered in approval, the wind carrying the echoes of their triumph. And in that quiet, perfect moment, Elara understood the truth she had always sought. Courage, compassion, and trust could illuminate even the darkest heart. And love, quiet, steadfast, unspoken, could transform not just a person, but a kingdom, a legacy, and the world itself. The journey was not over, but the first step had been taken. Together they would face whatever came next, bound by courage, strengthened by trust, and guided by the light they carried in their hearts. And in the distance the forest shimmered, alive with possibility, as if acknowledging the power of two hearts that refused to yield to darkness.